इशारे जिसकी गर्दे राह हूँ, वो कारवां तू है.
Bismillahirrahmanirrahim. Assalamu alaikum wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuh. I hope all of you are in the best state of Iman and health. In our previous lecture, we started the unit number 3 of science, that is digestion. And we studied why is digestion important for us. And since the process of digestion starts in the mouth, we studied about the different sets of teeth that are present in humans and how to keep our teeth clean and healthy. Then we moved on to the steps of digestion. We studied step number 1, that takes place in the mouth. Then we studied step number 2, that is the food pipe. And finally we studied step number 3, that is the stomach. We studied all these three steps of digestion in detail. Today we are going to start from step number 4, that is the small intestine. Now what happens is that the food that is broken down in the stomach, okay, in the stomach food is broken down into smaller pieces. You remember that, right? So what happens in the small intestine is that the food which is broken down into the small pieces, which are nutrients. Now the food is broken down in such small pieces that you can call them nutrients basically, okay? So the food in the form of nutrients that enters the small intestine. As you can see, this is the stomach, and as you can see that this little tablet of food which is in a large piece that enters the small intestine into very smaller pieces. Okay, when it enters the small intestine, it is in very small pieces. You can see that, okay, from a large piece to very small pieces. And now what happens in the small intestine? It passes through the wall of the intestine. As you can see in this picture, food is passing out from the walls of the small intestine. Food is passing out. So after entering the small intestine in the form of nutrients, the food passes out through the thin walls of the small intestine. And where does the food go after passing out from the thin walls of the intestine? The food goes into the blood vessels. Now blood vessels, the vessels from which the blood passes, they are surrounding all these organs. Okay, they are not drawn over here because that would have made the diagram very unclear and difficult to understand, but the blood vessels are surrounding all these organs. Okay, all these organs are surrounded by a number of blood vessels, okay, by a large number of blood vessels. So what happens is that when food moves out from the walls of the small intestine, it goes into the blood vessels surrounding the organ. Okay, the food passes through the thin walls of the intestine into the blood vessels, and after it passes into the blood vessels, the vessels transport the food to the body cells. Okay, so the nutrients are transported to the body cells, and in the cells, what do the nutrients do? What are they used for? They are used for providing energy, and they're used for for building new tissues or repairing the damaged tissues. Okay, so this is what happens in step number 4, that is the small intestine. Okay, this portion is the small intestine. Now let's move on to step number 5, that is the large intestine. Now what happens is that the undigested food, the food which is not digested, that food passes to the large intestine. Okay, this is the large intestine, this one. So you remember that we studied in unit number 2 that a certain type of food is not digested. Which one is that? Fibers are not digested in the human body. So those fibers and other undigested food, it passes to the large intestine. Okay, you have to remember that only undigested food passes to the large intestine. And what happens in the large intestine? Water is absorbed. Okay, in the large intestine, water is absorbed back in the body. Okay, from the large intestine, water is absorbed into the body. Okay, from the undigested food. Okay, what the undigested food has small amounts of water in it. Okay, so that water is absorbed back into the body. Okay, and the remaining solid part, now when water is absorbed from that food, So what remains is the solid part, okay, because the liquid part, which was water, that was absorbed. So the remaining solid part is sent out of the body as feces, okay. So after water is absorbed, the solid part is sent out of the body as feces, okay. You can see over here the food is moving, the undigested food, and the water is being absorbed as it goes by, and at the end the food will be removed from the body in the form of feces, okay. Now there are a few other organs which are part of the digestive system. We are going to look at them one by one. So the first organ we're going to look at is the pancreas. What are the pancreas? Pancreas are long flattened organs located in the belly, okay. They are located near the stomach. As you can see, pancreas is basically behind the stomach in most of the pictures, so you can see in most of the pictures, so you can see over here, this is the stomach. They have made the stomach a little transparent so that you can see the actual location of the pancreas. So these are basically the pancreas. It is a long flattened organ which is located in the belly near the stomach. Now what does the pancreas do? The pancreas produce digestive juices to break down food, okay. Pancreas produce those digestive juices. You studied that in the stomach digestive juices are released to break down the food, right? So basically pancreas produces these digestive juices to break down the food, okay. So that is the function of the pancreas, okay. The next organ we're going to study about is the next organ, which is the part of the digestive system which we are going to study about, is the liver. Now there are a large number of functions that the liver performs, okay. There are many functions performed by the liver, but we are only going to study those functions which are mentioned in your book, which are appropriate for your level. So the first function mentioned in your book is that the liver filters the blood. So the first function of the liver is that it filters the blood, okay. It removes any harmful toxic substances from the blood and lets the remaining clean blood out of it, okay. So it filters the blood. The second function of liver is that it stores food energy. Now you know that all the food that we eat is not used at once for the production of energy. Some of the food is stored in our body. So liver stores the food, okay, as glucose, okay, for later use when we require energy later on and we have not eaten anything. That is when liver releases energy from that stored food, okay. And the third thing about the liver that is mentioned in your book is that it is the largest glandular organ. What does glandular mean? It means that those organs which release something, either they release juices or bile or acid, anything. For example, the salivary glands, they release saliva. So all those organs which release something into the body are called glandular organs, and liver is the largest glandular organ in our body. And the last function of liver is that it produces bile. What is bile? Bile is a type of digestive juice, okay. The last organ that we have to study about is the gallbladder. Now we studied in the previous slide that bile is produced by the liver, okay, but it is stored in the gallbladder, okay. So after liver produces bile, the bile is stored in the gallbladder and it is released when it is needed, okay. So when the small intestine needs the release of bile, then gallbladder slowly releases the bile into the small intestine. As you can see, it pumps out bile and releases it into the small intestine when needed. That was all for today. Thank you very much all of you. Stay blessed. Allah Hafiz.